Okay.
The reading this morning for this Theosophy meeting is from The Voice of the Silence, from the section called The Two Paths by H.P. Blavatsky. The paths are two, the great perfections three. 6 are the virtues that transform the body into the tree of knowledge. Who shall approach them? Who shall first enter them? Who shall first hear the doctrine of the two paths in one, the truth unveiled about the secret heart? The law which, shunning learning, teacheth wisdom, reveals a tale of woe. Alas, alas, that all men should possess Alaya, be one with the great soul, and that possessing it, Alaya should so little avail them. Behold how like the moon, reflected in the tranquil waves, Alaya is reflected by the small and by the great, is mirrored in the tiniest atoms, yet fails to reach the heart of all. Alas, that so few men should profit by the gift, the priceless boon of learning truth, the right perception of existing things, the knowledge of the non-existent. Saith the pupil, O teacher, what shall I do to reach to wisdom? O wise one, what to gain perfection? Search for the paths, but O Lanu, be of clean heart before thou startest on thy journey. Before thou takest thy first step to learn to discern the real from the false, the ever-fleeting from the everlasting, learn above all to separate head learning from soul wisdom, the I from the heart doctrine. Yea, ignorance is like unto a closed and airless vessel, the soul a bird shut up within. It warbles not, nor can it stir a feather, but the songster, mute and torpid, sits, and of exhaustion dies. But even ignorance is better than head learning, with no soul wisdom to illuminate and guide it. The seeds of wisdom cannot sprout and grow in airless space. To live and reap experience, the mind needs breadth and depth, and points to draw it towards the diamond soul. Seek not those points in Maya's realm, but soar beyond illusions. Search the eternal and changeless Sat, mistrusting fancy's false suggestions. For mind is like a mirror, it gathers dust while it reflects. It needs the gentle breezes of soul wisdom to brush away the dust of our illusions. Seek, O beginner, to blend thy mind and soul. And now, the talk for this morning.
Great. Good morning, friends. And today we'll have a talk on number 3 and a triangle. And I would say this is probably the most difficult concept between what we've studied before, 1, 2, and 4, and probably the most esoteric concept to understand. So we'll begin with an analogy of that will reference the law of karma and law of cycles. For example, we live a life where each day may look as separate, but each day is part of the week. We live from Monday to Friday, then we have the weekend, but we often slice each day as this is a day. But each tomorrow has roots in the yesterday. When we wake up in the morning will bring the solved problems of yesterday, unsolved problems of yesterday. And once we look at life as a cycle, it's not each individual bead. It's literally a string of events that has causes in the past and the effects in the future. And this student had a random gift of a diary that lets you record 5 years on one page. And you can look on that one page on your notes from 2 years ago or from 3 or 4 years ago. And when you look at it, you realize that there's absolutely nothing accidental. Things just don't happen. They happen as a result of causes that were put in action maybe a long time ago, maybe several years ago. This sort of random gift taught the student ability to see life as a trajectory. It's not just today, it's not just tomorrow, it's not a week. Sometimes we like to focus on it as a 1 year passed, and we have a new beginning on the 1st of January. We feel like almost it will be a new life, but it does bring the causes of the past year and past years, maybe decades. But it's important to see life as a trajectory. What we do today will influence where we're in 10 years, where we're in 20 years. And the number 3, everyone probably is wondering why I'm talking about in reference to number 3. So that trajectory, that completion of understanding of a cycle is actually the number 3. So when we look at our life in the segments, it's like the film segments. We just see that segment, we see where it began, and we see each segment. But number 3 is something that allows us to see completion of a cycle and realize that it is an unbroken evolution of events, an unbroken evolution of us. And just to reference what we studied before, and I call it basically the everything in the manifested universe is the path of Trinity. And essentially that we've just heard in the voice of silence, the dual path, and we'll return to that. So the path of Trinity. So we're studying 1. So there was number 1. And 1 was the basically principle of unity. This was the first principle in Theosophy, principle of unity, of one unknown, omnipresent, and eternal. So this is the one from everything else basically projected, and the one projected itself in the action, and the manifested universe begins. So the duality, this is the beginning. So this is principle of unity. 1 is unity. 2 is duality. And duality is also exemplified by a line. This is where the 1 splits itself in the manifested universe and becomes duality of everything. Day, night, winter, summer, man, woman, sky, earth. So it is the manifestation in the matter that creates duality. So we're probably wondering, what is number 3? 3 is completion. And it may sound counterintuitive because in the beginning I mentioned that there is no grand finale in nature. There's no grand finale in the universe. Everything is just some segment of the cycle. So completion is not a completion of finality, because there is no finality in anything and ever will be. But completion is basically coming from the starting point, becoming duality, coming into conflict with oneself, with the other, with whatever it is, basically splitting into duality, and then coming back into unity in a more complete way, and then proceeding with the duality again, and so basically eternally. So everything is being manifested, that is being manifested in reality, follows this path of Trinity. First, we come from the one. We all come from the one. We all exist in the physical reality of matter. We experience duality. And then through that duality, once we evolve, we bring duality into unity within us. And that cycle continues from that. Now I would like to return to the voice of silence, to the passage that was read in the beginning. And it basically says that the paths are 2. The great perfections are 3. So there is a path that you can choose. There is a path of duality. You can choose one path or the other path. But the perfections are 3. And it's interesting that number 3, even here, is associated with perfections. So if you want to perfect something, you will have to come from duality into, again, into completion of some unity, or bringing that duality into cohesion. And then in this reading, we come back on the page 27 to the student asking, "Oh, teacher, what shall I do to reach to wisdom?" And the response is, and oh, wise one, what to gain perfection? So again, we're talking about perfection that is here associated with number 3. Perfections are 3. So we will talk more, and it's not accidental that perfections in the voice of silence associated with 3, because in fact, most of the completion of cycles or any evolution, or even the divinity associated with number 3. So it's a very esoteric number. And pretty much everything from the deity in our understanding of deity to every grain of sand in the manifested universe follows this path of Trinity, of becoming dual and and basically struggling through that duality in a search of unity again. The figure that represents this process is triangle. And I hope that after this talk, everyone looks at the triangle in a whole different way. It is a very, very sacred sign. We will not look at it from the standpoint of the Theosophical seal today, of the interlaced triangles, but just as a triangle itself. So the triangle is basically, there is 1, there is 2, and there is 3. 3 is the one that unites 1 and 2. It is that cohesion, that conclusion, that consciousness that brings the two together, be it spirit and matter, or we'll discuss many other things. But that's the triangle. It always have that foundational base that connects the two. And 2 is projection of divine into the manifested world. Triangle, so we got to the triangle. We have number 3, and there is always a letter associated with the numbers and figures. And in this case, it's the 3rd letter of alphabet, and that's letter in English C, in Greek it's gamma, and in Hebrew it's gimel. So those are the 3 representations. And if we look at the Pythagorean view on the numbers were basically an explanation of reality. It was what reality was. It was definition of reality for Pythagorean school. It is also interesting to look at the numbers and letters and the figures from the Platonic and Neoplatonic school. For Plato, the number 3 and triangle meant structure of the universe. It was the structure, and you can see it is the structure. It is 1 and 2 united in the pyramid that holds the form. And also it was the structure of the person. It is the spirit, it is the soul and the body coming together in the base. For Platonistic school, they had the number 3 broken into 3 aspects. There was the 1, then the second was the nous, or the intellect, the form. Basically, we can say maybe nous was something associated with matter. And then there was the soul, and that's the life principle. That's the prana in the Theosophical teaching. So again, there is 3. So all the explanation of divinity and manifestation of divinity, and we'll later get to the Christian explanation, is exemplified in 3s. So the triplicity of God, and again, God in the more abstract understanding. Lots of space here. Let's see. Today we're talking about lots of drawing of figures. So the triplicity of God. If we put divine here, let's call it God for simplicity. So, or the 1, or the first principle. And when God manifests itself in duality, we basically have here spirit, and we have matter. So that's when the first principle projects itself into the universe. So we have spirit and matter, and the spirit and matter, this projection into 2, this is what creates the whole host of dualities. That's where the dualities are coming from. In the first principle in 1, there is no duality. It's coming when there is a spirit and there is a matter. And all of the adversities and all the differences, and this is what we had in previous talks. This is when we start to willify matter or perceive duality as negative, because we just want to have good. We don't want to have the bad. We don't want to have the night. We want to have the day. But it is part of the reality of our existence in the manifested universe. So neither one is good or bad. It's, again, it's our perception, how we see and perceive it. But when we actually look at each duality, at each contradiction, if we look deeper into that, it's actually triplicity. So it becomes three. So if we look at spirit, so we have the spirit, and let's say it is just the manifestation of the first principle. It's a spirit. You can go and look at the different aspects of Fohat in it. And then when you look at the matter in the most basic views, this is basically the Mula Prakriti. It is the source material, it's matter itself. But when you look at the spirit and the matter as Mula Prakriti, it's not possible for us to comprehend it, because, yeah, we understand it's a source matter, but what is it actually? Or the spirit, it's not tangible. We cannot really perceive it with our senses. So for us to understand spirit or matter, or perceive it in the dual form, we need a form. There must be a form. And this is the conclusion of the triangle. So that form can be a human. That form can be a dog. That form can be a flower. It can be a bird. But it is some form that holds spirit and matter together. Without that form, those two are just sort of remaining ideas. So, and that is this line of the triangle. That's the form, the structure. And now going back to Plato, where he said three and triangle is the structure of the universe. It's the structure of a person. So this is the structure that holds the form of living being, or of any organic or non-organic being that basically been manifested, that holds spirit and matter in it. And it's hardly possible to conceive any life without a form. Now we can look at some different structures of triplicity. Again, I'll write it down, because when the students played with them, it's not as visible when you use words, but when you put it on a triangle, you can really see it. So we'll have triangle with different aspects in it. So if you have matter on one side, and you have motion on the other side, the triplicity of that, it will need a space. There will be needed three sides of the triangle. You cannot have matter in motion without creating space. Now you can replace this and say we will have say distance, and we'll have a direction. So something is moving in distance, in direction. Then from this, if we perceive anything moving over distance with a certain direction, we'll have duration. So there is some duration. Basically, there is time it is passing in space with a direction. Now, if we look at, we'll replace this with space. And we say, and this is matter. So we have matter moving through space. Then we have time. So it's literally, you can play with any aspect of this, and there is always three aspects to our sort of defined reality. And going back to where we started with this, with the spirit. So we have spirit, we have matter, and it must have a form. And this is pretty much in that triangle what our world is. And when we study later the interlaced triangles in Theosophical seal, there will be much deeper meaning of the two triangles that are interlaced, and their relationship between the one pointing up and the one pointing down. But right now, this is basically the different explanations of the triangle and what goes on the triangle. And if you remove just one aspect of that, then we will not have the basically the manifested life and in this manifested universe. So life and life form is critical to manifestation of spirit in matter. Basically, manifestation of spirit in matter creates a life form, of which we are one of the life forms. And all of these substances, all what we know, become known through that triangle. Like basically, without that form, nothing can be known by us. And another example that wasn't mentioned is even electricity. Like there are two polarities, there is positive and negative, and the third one, that's what creates electricity. So there are polarities, the duality, and then the basically the unity of that creates form, or the next level of consciousness, existence, or substance. I don't quite know what to call even electricity. So it is quite interesting when you look at the triangle from this perspective. Now, returning back to the concept of God, of the divine. Let's erase matter, spirit, and look at how we define divine. So let's say divine is here, or divinity, or spirit. And this will be human. So when we have basically, when we look at the first principle and when it projects itself through the action and creates manifested universe, it's almost like that one breaks into little. It's the best to do, as best as I can to describe it in human language. That it basically breaks in these little pieces. It does not completely it stays separate, but it also interpenetrates the matter, the visible universe, and becomes part of all it all. And we are part of this. We hold all of these particles, and it is in each of us that desire to reunite with the one. And it's not only with the Theosophists. With every spiritual teaching, there is that draw to merge back with the source, to reunite with the source. And we are on the journey, the path of reuniting with that source. So if we would say divine or source or first principle or God, whatever we call it, source, and this is the human, and we wish to, we're on this journey of search of reuniting with that, the base of this triangle will be religion. So this is what is being created as these two aspects. And it was quite interesting to learn that actually the meaning of religion comes from the Greek word religare. I can write it. Religare. What means to bind back. So through religion, we humans bind back to the divine. But you can very much say that the religion has its own aspect. It's a new creation that we created through the duality of our split from the source. So we create religion, and that becomes the base of the triangle of our relationship with the divine, or what often called our compact with the God. That the many religious sources uses that, a compact with the God, but it's not a compact. It's really that draw of us to reunite with the first principle, with the source. So that's on the triplicity of the divine, how we perceive it. And I will go through over some verses in Bible. That's from the Christian understanding, where 3 is referenced, because 3 is a very prominent number in Christianity. In fact, if we start with the base concept, it is the Trinity. And Trinity is the God Father, it's the Spirit, Holy Spirit, and it is the Jesus Christ. And so if we put it here, this is how it will look. And again, it's interesting to play with this concept because you can remove them, but in fact, they're very similar. You can put different religions, you can put different concepts, but let's put their God Father, Holy Spirit, And what we get at the base, we get Jesus or the child. That's why it's called so often the child. So the two create the third. And again, there's so many definitions of what the Godfather is. Probably the best one is to compare it with the first principle. It's just all omnipresent principle. And the Holy Spirit can be the projection into matter. And at the base, you have Jesus, who is physical and who is spiritual. So who is a man and who is a God. And that's basically complete the triangle of divinity. Now, if we look at the biblical verses, it basically, one is saying that Jesus spent 3 days in the tomb. So he spent 3 days. It takes 3 days to come from unity to duality and to completion. And in a way, it's Jesus' evolution, so he is resurrecting. Like, again, we'll look at the resurrection. It's not like he's resurrected from the dead to being life, but he's resurrecting to the next state of being. He became different. So he was one, then he was dead, and then he resurrected, he became yet something new. So again, it is a triangle. And it was 3 days that it took him to accomplish that. Again, it's very symbolic. It wasn't that he was there 3 days, but it's basically a reference to this triplicity of the path. Then it says that the Jonah stayed 3 days in the whale's belly. Again, why did the Jonah spend 3 days? Why it couldn't be 4 days, 2 days, 7 days? It takes 3 days. So again, it is the triangle that completes the cycle of evolution. Comes from one to duality to a new understanding of the next evolving cycle. Then another reference that will destroy the temple and will build it in 3 days. Again, the temple is definitely not physical temple, but a temple, it's again, it's a consciousness, it's the understanding, it is the new way of being. So again, it's going to be built in 3 ways, because you have to come from one to duality of a split and then find unity in that duality. Then the last reference that is interesting is that Jesus was 30 when he began his ministry. 30 is 3 multiplied by 10. And his ministry lasted 3 years. And after 3 years, he was killed. So it wasn't 2.5, it wasn't 1, it wasn't 4, it was 3 years. So again, a reference to the triangle on number 3. And again, it's doubtful that these numbers actually reference the actual years. It is more of esoteric concepts taking us to that understanding of Trinity, triangle, and number 3. And yet another one, there were 3 wise men who came to see the baby Jesus. Again, there was not some other number, it was 3 wise men. And when we look at the 3 wise men and remember the reading in the voice of silence, there were 3 perfections. So again, it's very symbolic of what it means. And yet another reference that the student found was that let's build 3 tabernacles. So 3 is really became the one of the key precepts of Christianity, and then the whole going back to the whole concepts of Trinity. And now going from Christianity, I want to go to something more modern, from our modern culture, and that's the movie Matrix. The name of the woman who was assisting on the search was Trinity. So she was the one who was basically guiding through the search. And when you look at her name in the, for those who have seen Matrix in that context, Trinity basically means a perfected human being, as someone who went through duality in themselves to the next reunification and understanding of basically putting your own duality into some cohesion. So that's at least would be my interpretation of that. But it's interesting that her name again was Trinity. It wasn't something else. So now to summarize this, we'll go back to the 1, 2, and 3 and bring it all together. So one was, let's see, A, and it was represented by a dot. 2 was B, and it was a line. And 3 was C, and it is a triangle. So this is what we studied before, and 1 was the unity represented by the dot, and that's also in our Theosophical seal. 2 was the Beth, and this is the line of projection into duality. And 3 is Gamma, and represented by a triangle. And later in the seal, we will see the 2 interlaced triangles. The A in Hebrew is Aleph, that represents activating principle, so the source. The Beth in Hebrew is a form, it's generation, it's projection into duality. And the Gimel or C is the relationship between 2. So if we put it in terms of the triangle, we have Aleph here, we have Beth here, and then we have Gimel here. So the triangle is the relationship between the one source, the projection of into manifested universe and duality, and this is basic completion that can be any form, any consciousness, and is definitely us as well. So it is the form, the mold, the result of the union of the 2, of the basically of the source projecting itself into the manifestation. And this is really hard to comprehend because we're dealing with a very esoteric concept. So it's not that easy to sort of visualize this. So it is the spirit and matter united in the structure of a living form. And it's basically a mold, and that holds life. It's a container of all life. That's probably the best description for the triangle, can be container of all life. And as we went through different descriptions of it and different discussion around the triangle, so triangle was a covenant between the human and the source, exemplified through religion, any type. Covenant, the triangle is also our family structure. It is one person coming from unity, creating family with the second person, coming into duality with all the struggles of duality. And what would be the base of that triangle? Any guesses? If we have, like in the family structure, we have man and a woman, and what would be the base? Anyone wants to jump in?
So children?
Children, yeah. It will be in terms of relationship, because we said that triangle is the relationship between these 2. That could be love, and it is a child. And again, it's just so representative, like in our, as above, so below. For us, it is a man, because it's a duality. There is a woman with the underlying principle of love, and there is a child. And when we go above, there is a source, there is matter, and there is a life form. Or if we go into the Christianity, there is the Father, there is the, actually before the Spirit, there was Sophia. Like Sophia got erased, but Sophia was there. There was the Father, there was Holy Spirit, or there was Sophia, and there was Jesus, the child. So that's yet another sort of the exemplification of triangle from our life. So it is love, it is covenant, it is a child. It's basically a link between the personality and soul. It can be linked between body and spirit. It can be link between human and God. It can be link between man and a woman. It's basically a link that unifies two dualities that came from one. And it's interesting that if you look at the triangle, here is the point at the top. So it comes from one. It comes into duality. It splits into two. And then it unifies on the bottom. So even in its geometric representation, it's quite interesting that here is our first principle, that's number one, that splits into two. So there's two sides of the triangle, and there is a unifying principle that creates the base. And this is basically the exemplification of existence in the manifested universe. So that's the deeper side of this symbol. I would probably like to conclude that there is a lot to discuss about it, to understand more, because it's a very esoteric symbol. And I would like to open now for discussion and see if there is any questions or any reflections on this. Or maybe any different type of views on it, because one can see this triangle in so many ways.
It seems noteworthy there are three dimensions that we exist in on kind of like a day-to-day basis, length, width, and depth. Obviously, from mathematics and physics, we know about at least conceptually, a fourth dimension or a fifth dimension or more. But in terms of our perceived existence in the world, it's very much based on those three dimensions. This seems significant. Not a question, really, I guess. Just
this is a very good addition. I didn't even think of three dimensions. Very true. We exist in three-dimensional world.
I have a question, and thanks for the excellent talk. In the Voice and as well as elsewhere in Theosophy, the triangle is used also to symbolize disciples, initiates, adepts at different grades. Did you come across that? Because they use different triangles for different stages of initiation.
It was only in the reference of perfected being, basically a perfected personality of basically coming into duality and then having a perfections, and the perfections that take you back to the source, back one step closer to the unity with the source and unity within yourself. But I would love to hear more if you've read about it, of how it's being used as a symbol of initiates. It's, of course, it's on the Masonic symbols. It's basically, and that's why it was so interesting to see that in the Voice, there are three perfections. That it is sort of a symbol of us splitting and then finding in that difference a perfection of rising up. And for me, it was really fascinating to see of not being afraid of conflict and of duality and split, but seek unity in that. Because split seems like to be a part of existence. It's okay to split, but it's not okay to split and continue trajectory of the split. It's how from that split we come together. And maybe it's also very relevant for our Theosophical movement.
Just a comment, when you asked a question on the family, I recall that in the ancient times, marriage was also symbolized as a triangle. The apex was the priest, the left corner was the bride, and the right was the bridegroom. And I'm trying to recall what the significance of that, but
in my memory, something coming up about the alchemical marriage.
There could be a deeper
the symbols, but I don't remember. It's something else to look. I think there is a symbol of triangle.
It's the representation of the logos and manifesting into spirit and matter.
Mm-hmm.
Spirit represented by the male, the groom, and matter represented by the
Mm-hmm.
female.
Mm-hmm. And the relationship of the two. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Lenny, you had a comment on a chemical wedding, or?
Oh no, it's a concept that came to mind now as I listened to the topic and to about the triangle and the number 3. That the symbol of the cross, and I know that's the idea of a horizontal line and a vertical line intersecting is also considered to represent a chemical wedding. The group, the esoteric group called the Rosicrucians, which the specifically means to have a rose bloom inside the center of a cross, is supposed to also, that the naming of itself is supposed to reflect the chemical wedding, as in 2 figures create a center.
Mm-hmm.
Even from this, I'm just trying to think outside of the box of different approaches to this, but it's very, very, very thought provoking. The other something that I wanted to mention, there is a debate I've heard on the how should the amount of the time amount that Jesus Christ underwent through the crucifixion, from the crucifixion to the resurrection, because we always hear that at the 3rd day he resurrected. Some people argue that it's more akin to 1 day and a half. In the sense that half is theorized to have happened at the modern day equivalent to 2 in the afternoon, something like that. All of Saturday, that it is, but then really, really early morning Sunday is when the resurrection is theorized to happen. So the time sense is considered to be more equivalent to 1 day and a half. Just I know it's a technicality of sorts. If you look at it, it totally makes sense to be said that it's 3 days, since it happened on a Friday. There's a Saturday in between, and Sundays when the resurrection happened. I understand. I don't want to sound illogical, but if you specifically pay attention to the details, it could be considered to have happened in 1 day and a half, more or less.
Interesting. Of course, it's the other exercise is to detach from his actually physical resurrection that probably did not ever take place, and try to understand what does it mean that he resurrected. Like he was reborn in the new energetic state. He was, or what does it mean for us, his rebirth? Because probably the stories of Jesus are more teaching for us what it's supposed to mean. Lenning, if you have any comments on that, what do you think? I was speaking of the actual rebirth, or there is a symbology around this?
Yeah, that is also a topic of debate. It's very fascinating, very interesting. There is even just to what extent we can go. There is the theory that a hologram is what ends up happening. What people see when he's resurrected. There is the idea that it's a symbolic side to it. It's just because obviously I was not there. I cannot claim to know the absolute truth behind that. But I do. There's another idea is that it's supposed to represent the transcendence of the material into the spiritual. There's many. Yeah, hard for. I'm not gonna claim I'm the be all end all knowledge person on this topic, but it is very profound.
So you can also look at this triangle as sort of going from from divine to our birth and existence, and coming back to the divine. So if we look at the Jesus' resurrection, so he came from Godfather then he died, and then he returned to the source, or to some level of that.
Interesting.
So it definitely seems like our journey through the material back to
Mhm.
to the source. At least that's what it seems to go in other religions, because Jesus is born, he is born divine. It's like it's story of us. The story of Jesus is actually a story of each one of us. We're born in the matter, we're born divine, and then we die, and then we resurrect to one step closer to that source. It's just that there is no finale that we perceive, like we die, we resurrect, and we're in heaven. There's no finale to the story. It continues. So we're one step closer, that we're born again, we're a step closer, we're born again, we take some setback, we take 5 steps back, and so it continues.
I was gonna add something briefly. Oh my god, it's kind of forgetting. Somehow I forgot out of my mind. I don't know why. Give me a second.
Mhm.
Yes, there is the idea that Jerusalem is a place that's not a technical place, that is a place you're born in the heart. I just think looking at I'm just reading again what you just said. Jesus being born, and this it is. Oh, there is a theory that what we hear, what we know about Jesus Christ, that he was a person, in the fourth dimension.
Mm-hmm.
That many concepts we have about him are in the fourth dimension, whereas in other religions, let's say Hinduism or other aspects of Buddhism, there are when they speak about divinity, they are speaking in terms that go beyond the fourth dimension.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just to mention that.
Yeah, the understood listening to you came that about triangle being a form, that we cannot really understand God or divine without the form. It's hard for us because it's a different dimension. So this is why we have Jesus Christ, who comes as a man. He comes in a form that we can comprehend the divine in. So he provided a form for us to come a little closer to understanding divine. Like we've studied that there is no way we can ever comprehend the first principle. We just can't. We don't have that language, we don't have that perceptions. We just sort of called it omnipresent, immutable, and eternal. But with the appearance of Jesus, that was that link where it's put in a structure and a form and say, oh, okay, that's, we can sort of get a little closer to understanding what it may be. Or any adept, like that we can select any other adept. They're definitely the teachers, the adepts, but it's also a form of a little bit more divine that we can grasp with our senses.
Very good.
And any other comments?
I'm just going to say that in either mathematics or science, the triangle or delta represents a change or a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see any esoteric? I'm trying to figure out what would be the esoteric, the hidden meaning behind that. Did you see in your research that the triangle also depict a change or?
It was a little bit touched on in Pythagorean school.
Mm-hmm.
But this is actually quite an eye-opener because I didn't know this, that it represents difference.
Mm-hmm.
But it really makes sense because the triangle is really making difference from after bringing duality to the next level.
Mhm.
It's a delta of difference. It's
Yeah.
very interesting. Thank you. That really sparked some thoughts around it. I didn't come across. It was a little bit spoken about in the Pythagorean school, but I didn't pay attention because I didn't know that triangle actually means the difference.
Mhm.
So I sort of, but it was referred to. Hey, maybe one last suggestion for a question. What does it mean for us? Like it's interesting to discuss the esoterics of triangles and letters and numbers, but what is our takeaway? Like if anybody has a takeaway, like my takeaway is actually on the difference. It's post-talk discussion.
Mhm.
That it's this delta of who we were and who we became through that struggle of dualities.
Mhm.
And maybe giving little more appreciation for duality, that it's okay that things are different, that there are different opinions, that there are different people, that there are differences, that it is part of being in the manifested world and coming to that delta of difference in yourself after reconciling it.
I mean, and that everything happens according to a system, that there's a structure. It's not just random. It's not just chaos. That manifestation happens according to a triangle, which is such an orderly, like reliable figure.
It's very solid.
Reassuring to this student, anyway.
Go ahead, Josh.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said it's reassuring to this student anyway. That there's some order here. It may seem like chaos, but it actually is all happening according to geometry.
I agree. You just like to look at it. Just have such a wide base, it definitely cannot fall down. Yeah.
Can the triangle also represent the resurrected Christ within all of us?
Yeah.
Can it?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I think HPB talks about it, right? The resurrection. I forgot. I don't recall in one of our articles.
Definitely. But maybe resurrection is not even. It's not about physical death. At each moment, we die to something and we're born to something new. Okay. Okay, if there are no questions, maybe we conclude here. And I have an announcement on the Judge Day. It seems like the Ontario Lodge, New York, and Philadelphia are agreeing on having a joint Judge Day. So, and they invited us to be part of that. I think the date is March 18th. I'm still confirming date. As soon as they send me an email, I will forward it to everyone. But the way the program seems to be working, that they want to have each lodge to have a role. So there will be a lodge that is presenting a talk. There will be a lodge.
Hey, Lenny, can you please mute your?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there will be a lodge with the readings, and they asked us if someone from our lodge can do a biographical introduction. Just to go like maybe 10 minutes through the biography. I don't know who can join because it's a Wednesday night, but I will send the invite, and just to think if someone wants to do the introduction. And it's 10 minutes of Judge's biography. I think it's at 7:30. That's what's being planned.
It's 7:30 Eastern time?
Yeah, 7:30 Eastern time on Wednesday. And they didn't tell me which Wednesday. I believe it is 18th. So I think they're still discussing with everyone.
I can join on Wednesday.
Perfect. I think that would be special. We haven't done something like this in years. So and Cassie will probably send an email. Talk to Cassie for who wants to volunteer for the 10-minute intro.
Sounds good.
Okay, sounds good. Then Josh will continue with the reading in 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Thanks for the talk.
At